Hey friends, welcome back to the Above Board podcast. So I had this moment hit me yesterday while I was playing catch outside with my daughter. So we're getting ready for softball season and we haven't picked up our gloves since the end of last softball season. So I thought we should probably get warmed up, dust the glove off and just have a game of catch, just kind of get like reacclimated. It's the timeless art of having a catch with dad. And that's like for me as a kid, that's all I ever wanted to do is play catch with my dad. And I'm sure he felt fondly about it as well, just for like those little moments or opportunities to have a meaningful conversation as a parent. And so it's like, it's really cool. Like it's my turn. How cool is that? And so anyway, we're out there 20, 25 minutes, started making a game out of it. So I said, all right, we got to catch 5 straight pop flies. And I was making them hard, by the way. And we got to catch 5 straight pop flies. And she catches 5 in a row, like nails it on the first try. And I'm all right, I'm impressed. That's cool. Well, let's do 5 straight ground balls, but you got to field them cleanly and you got to throw them back to me so that I can catch them. And so I'm thinking, all right, this is going to be way easier than the pop flies I just threw. And it wasn't. And she struggled. So we got 4 in a row and then missed the 5th. All right, got to go back to 1. Next round, missed 3 in a row. Missed, and we had to start again. Next round, missed the first one. So immediately starting over. We probably spent like maybe, 10 minutes just doing this over and over. And then you could feel this like frustration starting to build and you could see it on her face. And so we paused, we did some jumping jacks and try to just like talk about things, take our mind off of it, just reset ourselves. And then we went back to just playing a normal game of catch. And then I said something that only a dad would say in a game of catch in a moment like this. And it kind of felt like really good for me to hear out loud as well. And I was like, listen, we're out here and we're not practicing to be perfect. We're just practicing to learn and to try to be a little bit better. And then we talked about, this whole like journey and the destination and, the idea that like, if the outcome is perfection every time, then we're going to be sorely disappointed and we're going to be very frustrated. And, I thought of something else that I had heard recently, which I was listening to somebody, it might've been Tony Robbins, talk about Steph Curry. So he's like, for those that don't know, if you don't know, he's one of the best shooters of all time in the NBA. So he's made over 4,000 3-pointers and he holds the record for the most 3-point shots ever made during his career. And guess what? He missed a lot. In fact, he missed like 60% of the shots that he took. But he also practiced a lot. He shot 500 shots per day. That was 3,500 shots per week, 14,000 shots per month, 168,000 shots per year. If you add up the math over the course of his career, that's over 2.5 shots in his practice taken over his entire career. That is less than 1/10 of 1% of all of the shots he took in an actual game. Anyway, there's a ton of lessons in that Steph Curry example, but my point is he also missed important game on the line, game-winning shots too. And we're all going to miss those game-winning opportunities sometimes. That's going to happen in life. So if you're so focused on perfection that you don't allow yourself the breathing room to fail and to learn, you're probably going to end up giving up long before you're even good at the thing that you're trying to get good at. And this is very much a podcast about learning to love the failure, learning to enjoy the process, and the art of just simply executing that process, whatever that means. That could, for us, for my daughter and I, just practicing every day and maybe practicing even when we don't feel like it or when we get frustrated and just trying to find the reason or the motivation to kind of keep going through that a little bit. And by the way, so back to my conversation with my daughter, time passed. And, kind of things like loosened up a little bit. And so I said, hey, let's try it again. Let's do the 5 ground balls, the 5 in a row again. And we didn't get it on the first try still, but she did stay with it and eventually fielded and cleanly threw 5 back to me. And so at the end of all this, she's definitely like done, like she's ready to go inside. And I said, I asked her, like, what did you think of the conversation that we had? And she said, I don't know. Which tells me that I was mostly talking to myself in this whole thing. But I definitely think God placed me in that situation so that I could think about how to handle it, and maybe most of all, hear myself say those words. And my daughter just needed that extra time to reset, get out of her own head and attempt this 5 ground ball thing again. And I do think, by the way, with children especially, and this is maybe a different podcast, but I think that things are caught, not taught. And although maybe my words might not have impacted her the way I had hoped, or maybe the way that they helped me in that moment, hopefully my actions did. And so, listen, life's a real blessing, man. I mean, to get to have moments like that. Last year I would have all kind of good moments, but I realized that I was too busy being distracted or frustrated or just consumed or taken over with different things that I had going on in that moment. I was too busy to notice my blessings. And so, much like this moment with my daughter, where she had 5 minutes of just kind of being consumed with frustration, that led to just things kind of getting worse and worse at scooping up these 5 ground balls. We all need to take that moment to take a breather, reset ourselves, and appreciate the journey and the work and the process, and not be so focused on the outcome of perfection. And that's what I'm working on here in 2026. So thank you to my daughter for that lesson. I'm curious, for those of you listening, have you ever had that teachable moment with a child or a loved one that ended up turning into a teachable moment for you to reflect on as well? I'd love to hear that in the comments. And thank you all again, as always, for being a part of the Above Board community. I love what I get to do. I love having these conversations. I consider myself lucky that you're listening with me today. So until next time, keep working on these things. We hope you're enjoying your 2026, and we will see you next week. Bye.